and welcome back everyone to another episode of Reality Bites, our bite-sized version of our regular podcast from Reality Hub, of course, who I share with Steve. You're here with Rob, and yeah, thank you for joining me as I take a short discussion, but a deep discussion into a topic which is resonant and which I feel like is worth sharing. So hopefully this helps with your own inner inquiry and your own reality wherever you're at on your spiritual journey. So with this episode, I thought I would dive into your relationship to your emotions. Now, when we talk about relationship, a lot of times what comes to mind is the intimate ones, the romantic ones. When someone says, are you in a relationship? And of course you are, you always are in some form of relationship because you're in relationship to yourself, but you're also in relationship to everything in your world and in your reality. When you really break it down, it's your conscious awareness having an experience. And then what's your relationship to whatever that experience is? You even have an experience to your inner thoughts and your inner dialogue when you really think about it. Because obviously whatever you're thinking, there's got to be someone or something, the me, if you like, in the I, that's actually recognizing and aware that you're having those thoughts. So that's something to ponder on. But yeah, in this episode, I wanted to really focus on emotions. Yeah, emotions. So how well do you know your emotions? How well can you interpret and feel your feelings, all those feelings? So yeah, that's something which is, I'm going to share more about this, but more about what's really come up for me. But I think the first thing is just to get curious about where you're at, like right now. How are you feeling? Like, what's your emotional state? Because often we're so caught up in the head and we're thinking about, what we got to do, or thinking about, bills to pay or work to do, or what someone said on the phone just before. We're this clutter of mind junk, if you like. But how present are we with what we're feeling, and then acknowledging that? So that's a really good place to start, is just to get present with where or what you're feeling right now, and then trying to, describe it. Where are you feeling whatever you're feeling in your body? Is it tense? Is it anxious? Is it in your stomach? So yeah, that's the first step, is getting curious. But first of all, I just wanted to touch on that. The relationship to self, in my opinion, is probably the most important relationship that you'll ever have, right? You spend all this time with yourself, and how good are you with just being by yourself? So there's another little thing to ask yourself and build that relationship with self. But yeah, we need connection. We are social creatures, and we develop our first connections to, other people or with another human through our parents, or whoever's looking up, whoever's taking care of us when we're young. And we are tribal by nature, and we learn so much in relationships to other people. And we often attract certain people into our world to help facilitate and help us grow, because they often trigger things with us, and they often reflect back to us those things that we need to work on as individuals, which we may not have discovered on our own had we not been in that relationship. So back to the relationship with self, in particular our emotions. So it's our emotional body, our emotional intelligence that we really need to get to know and become more intimate with. And of course, we are feeling beings, and emotions are energy in motion. So we're energetic beings having these feeling. We're feeling beings. Yeah, we're having sensations all the time. So it's about getting in tune with those. And I guess we are guided so much by our internal emotional compass, if you like. How often do we make decisions based on how we feel rather than what we think. And I guess one of the biggest realizations I have made recently after exploring my own relationship to my emotions is how I actually favor the positive ones over the negative ones. So yeah, the penny really dropped for me on that. It was like a real shift, because I've had this, I guess, almost an addiction to chasing peak experiences and chasing the joy and the success and the good feelings, all the good vibes, right? But as you know, we live in a contrasting universe, contrasting expressions. So there's good and bad, and there's positive and negative. So we're often taught to focus more on the positive experiences and the positive feelings and emotions, because obviously we don't want to feel the negative stuff because it causes pain and suffering and hurt. And so, we've often trained ourselves and taught ourselves to dismiss and disassociate and disconnect to those negative emotions because of what they make us feel, and we don't want to feel that way. And why don't we want to feel that way? Well, maybe it's because as we were growing up, we were told that feeling bad or feeling sadness at a particular time, we interpret that as, hey, well, sad means you're not good enough or you're not worthy. It can often, if we suppress those natural emotions, and perhaps our parents told us not to feel that, or we interpret it in a certain way, or, it leaves this traumatic imprint of not feeling good enough, or I can't feel those feelings, or I'm not allowed to express how I'm really feeling. So I've got to sort of, suppress that, push that into the corner and just pretend that I'm okay. How many people out there are just pretending that they're okay, and they, that they're too afraid to be open and vulnerable to share how they really feel. And it sort of comes back to that whole, trying to be the perfect person and the people please, and all these sort of coping mechanisms or survival mechanisms in a way to cope. It's a survival strategy to not feel all the feels, or to feel the feelings that we're taught from a young age that we're not supposed to feel. So yeah, the problem is then that we carry all this suppressed emotion in our emotional body or nervous system, and it kind of never has a chance to resolve or express or complete. And yeah, we've used the coping mechanism of not expressing how we truly feel as a survival mechanism as we grow into adults, and that sort of gets triggered and exposed in relationships and in all sorts of different forms as we get older. But yeah, that's another big topic. But I really wanted to focus on this whole, you've got to always be positive. And yeah, I kind of feel that society, and in particular sort of the spiritual new age methodology, has often been all about this whole raising your vibration and, always focusing on the positive things in life with, it's kind of like a spiritual bypass, raise your frequency, raise your vibration, to the detriment of neglecting the negative ones or the negative feelings. So there's this need to always focus on the positive. And, in my experience, this rarely works because it bypasses the importance and validation of all your feelings, the full spectrum of emotions that we carry as human beings. So, it's important to validate the fact that you're sad, or you're not feeling that great, or you're feeling anxious and depressed, and realize that that's just your natural way of your body being what it's being and feeling what it's feeling, and allowing that and accepting that, rather than repressing it or suppressing it. And we have this whole kind of notion that, or even, I suppose we have a whole industry that tells us to medicate and soothe and to numb those feelings. You don't, if you're anxious, then you got to numb that shit. You got to soothe that shit. Or we've got a whole nother industry of, media and technology and all its forms that tell us to distract from that shit. And, hey, it's just, hey, look over here, and don't look within and don't connect to your own emotional well-being and body. So, yeah, which only leads to, compounding and more suffering because you're not getting to the root cause of why you're actually feeling the way you're feeling. And then we can then interpret this as being not worthy or not good enough, or there's a sensation, or there's actually a real disconnect from your own body, your own physical being, and a disembodiment, which, in all these forms of distraction and medicating and self-soothing, all these coping mechanisms, addictions, etc., they're all just disconnecting us from our own innate body wisdom and just feeling what you're actually feeling in any given moment. So, the remedy that came to mind was after realizing that I was also guilty of chasing the pleasure or chasing the positive emotions and feelings and neglecting the negative ones, was that, all emotions are valid. That that you have to accept that being human is also about accepting all your emotions. And I came to realize also that if you have an addiction to being positive, chasing the bliss, even when you're not feeling, even when you are feeling sad, then what you are in effect saying is, I shouldn't be feeling this way, which only makes you suffer more. And maybe those feelings of sadness or depression or anxiety is actually your body's wisdom or your body's call for help. It has a message for you. So remember that all emotions are valid and sacred, and there's a reason why you're having them. So it's about getting back in tune and in touch with them, and perhaps interpreting them and just being with them. So no wonder so many of us feel fragmented, disconnected to life, the world. But yeah, most importantly, we feel disconnected to ourselves. And yeah, I suppose I'll just finish off with, just asking you to be curious about what your relationship to your emotions are at this point in time. And I recommend becoming curious and taking the time, perhaps going for a walk and tuning in and just accepting with where you are at any given moment, and be with whatever you feel at any given moment, so that you do become more present and aware with what your emotions are trying to tell you. And yeah, remember that being human means accepting and embracing the full spectrum of the human experience, that all emotions are sacred and valuable and carry deep wisdom for us. So yeah, it's my little bite-sized exploration in your relationship to emotion. So yeah, I hope that offers, just shed some light and awareness, and you get curious on, your own relationship to yourself, which, as I said at the beginning, I believe is the most important relationship you can ever have. Till next time, it's Rob, and thanks for listening to another episode of Reality Bites.